Welcome to the Real Estate Sessions, and join industry leaders as they share their stories and offer tips and advice to real estate professionals. Now your host, Bill Risser of Chicago Title, Arizona.
Hi, and welcome back to the Real Estate Sessions podcast. We really appreciate you checking out this tiny little corner of the internet. And don't be afraid to tell your friends about what we're doing here, realestatesessions.com, or you can obviously find us on iTunes. I can't tell you how happy I am to have today's guest. It's Laura Monroe of RealSatisfied, and she's agreed to hang out for a little while, answer a few questions here on the Real Estate Sessions. And I think a lot of you know prior to RealSatisfied that Laura spent almost 3 years, I think, with Inman News as their Director of Industry Engagement and Social Media. That's where I met Laura. I think it was at an Inman Connect, right, Laura?
I think it was. We were ambassadors together, in fact, I think.
That's right. And Laura, before that, had a real estate background. She worked for a number of years, somewhere around 10 years, with Keller Williams Tri-Valley Realty in the East Bay area. And at that same time, created her own marketing company, Creative Agent Marketing. So she's been around for a long time in the business. And welcome to the Real Estate Sessions podcast, Laura.
Thank you, Bill. I'm excited to be here.
I hope you feel that way when we're done.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, so this will be fun.
We do. So you, as you may know, if you listen to any of the previous podcasts, I kind of like to find out where everybody came from, kind of the backstory. So I was doing some digging, I kind of know how to use the internet, and I saw a Bachelor of Arts from USIU. Is that the USIU in San Diego?
Yes.
Right off I-15. Wow.
Yes. And it's technically not USIU anymore. It's a different, it's actually a trade college now, I think. But yes, at the time, it was, I went to the School of Visual and Performing Arts there. And my dream was they had several campuses. They had one in London, they had one in Nairobi. And my dream was to go, since I was doing theater and musical theater, my dream was to spend my junior year in London doing theater in London. I never quite made it that far, but but finished my degree out there.
It's a beautiful campus set up in some big eucalyptus tree groves. Yeah, I know it very well. I grew up in San Diego, so it was interesting to see that.
I had some great classmates too that actually went on to do some pretty cool things. So so it was really, really a lot of fun.
Awesome. Now, as I sit here in the desert, and today's high is going to be 113 degrees, you also have a little background here in the Valley of the Sun, correct?
I do. I was actually raised in Scottsdale. I went to school through Scottsdale Community College, so I was a artichoke.
A fighting artichoke, right?
I was a fighting artichoke, and so yes, my family still lives there, so I get back there occasionally, but I do not miss the heat. All
right. So as you and trust me, I wish I was somewhere else today. It's one of those brutal days. So before you began your real estate career with KW, there had to be something that kind of drew you into that, right? Because you'd been out of school for a little while and probably doing some other things. But what was that transition that got you into the real estate industry?
Well, I think what got me there was I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was wanting to do, I didn't want to go back to work full time, but because I wanted to be home while my kids were little. So I actually met another mom who was another kindergarten mom who was an escrow coordinator for a team in the Bay Area. And she said, we really could use some help in our marketing with some of our marketing management and listing coordination on the sell side, because it was right during the heat of the market and we were selling in a wonderful farm area just like hotcakes. And so I decided to just go in, and it was a little husband and wife team that were doing amazingly well, and I just fell in love with the marketing. I fell in love with graphic design and everything that had to do with building an online presence and working with the website, and decided that was really where I wanted to stay instead of going all the way into sales, which looking back, I probably should have gone ahead and done it, but I just loved kind of doing what I was doing, and I started doing it for other agents in the office. So it kind of became my passion at that point.
So it started off, was there some transaction coordinating in there too? And then, or was it mostly marketing?
I was mostly marketing. We had an escrow transaction coordinator who back then nothing was paperless. Everything was, papers and files. And so she handled the escrow side, and I was unlicensed, so I handled all of the marketing and the graphic design. And our market was a luxury market, so that marketing had to be really upscale. It wasn't just, little flyers and little postcards and managing that kind of thing. It was really upscale, 4-page brochures and just doing a lot. And I really loved working in that particular market. It was a lot of fun.
This time, this is pre-social, so you're really working with kind of the internet in its infancy. It's just been around for a few years when you first started. I'm going to say that, I mean websites, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when social hits the scene, you're still at Tri-Valley, KW, right? You're still doing that thing, and you've got your marketing company up and going, helping other people.
Right.
I'm guessing you had to be an early adopter of social.
I was. Well, I would say I was an early adopter of online networking. I started on the Active Rain platform to help try to generate some business. So that's where I learned not only how to network online, but how to blog, and kind of learned what other agents needed to learn, wanted to learn, needed in their businesses. So it was, a combination of, the perfect timing of being on a brand new platform that was being adopted quickly by a lot of us that were in the same category of learning about technology. And this was even just pre-social by probably 2 or 3 years. But then when we kind of got past the blogging phase, Facebook opened up, Twitter opened up, and we all just kind of followed each other as a group. We migrated into social. We still had Active Rain, but by this point we were all owning our own content on our own blogs, and I think social was the next evolution in being able to carry those relationships into a different kind of platform and be able to keep up with each other on a personal level, not just on a business level. And so I think that was a lot of fun. That solidified a lot of relationships. It took it to a deeper level. It certainly added a level of fun. And it also opened up, more opportunities to meet even more people outside of real estate, and sort of merge the personal and the professional. So that was an interesting time when that all came together.
You're not the first person who has mentioned Active Rain as sort of the gateway drug into this online networking. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. I mean, we still very much connected to a lot of the Active Rainers from the early days.
So when you were playing in that space and trying to, you have your marketing customers that you're helping at the brokerage, were some of them, really upfront and, hey, let's run with this? Or did you get some pushback from some others who are thinking it's just a fad, I don't care? How did that kind of play out?
It was a little bit, there was a little bit of pushback. It's interesting because I've seen some things go for full circle. For example, my broker that I worked with, he actually said to me, Laura, I want you to go take all the online classes on digital marketing and blogging, and because I really don't want to learn all that. I really want to work my database and my farm and work with all of these clients that I've worked with for 10, 15 years. I don't want to learn all that. I want to be able to hire someone who can do all of that for me. So that was kind of when the virtual assistant term started taking off for me, which was a big aha moment where I realized I could do exactly what I wanted to do, but also be able to provide services for agents and brokers that were just like him. They really just didn't want to. It's not so much that they were pushing back, but they realized that that this new technology was already going to be a little bit more overwhelming and time consuming, and it would be taking away from their relationship. So in that sense, there was some pushback, but I saw the opportunity as, well, fine, then hire me, I'll do it. I love it. Happy to do it.
So you mentioned you were the one that took the online classes or maybe went to events, and being in the Bay Area, it seems like probably a natural that you found out about Inman pretty quickly.
Yes, I did. I actually was more of a bar camp person, attendee first.
Okay.
But then once but obviously that was the San Francisco bar camp was always the day before Inman started. So everyone came to Inman, everyone was there, and they continued the rest of the week. I usually went home because again, my children were still pretty young, so I would go home after bar camp, but I followed it very, very closely, and so it was always seemed like a lot of fun. And then obviously was asked to be an ambassador not too far after that, so finally got to go.
And that might be where we met, I think, and maybe at that event. It's very possible.
I think that was 2012, I think.
I think you're right. Yep. I think the time goes way too fast for me to try and remember
In fact, it may have been a year earlier. I think Chris Smith gave me a ticket to Agent Reboot, so it may have been a year earlier. But I think it was when we officially met was probably in 2012.
Right. That's great.
Right.
So we know that you ended up working for Inman. So can you talk a little bit about how that all happened? We, on our last podcast, we talked to Katie, and she talked about her desire to go out on her own. And I think, I think a lot of people have come to Inman, have been there for a few years, and then they move off onto something that's more personal and more passionate. And so Katie was doing that. So how were you approached, and how did this all fit into obviously your family, and it took a lot more time. So how did that all work out?
It did. Well, by this point, my children were a little bit older, but Katie and I met because we were doing some networking really closely with some amazing women in the space, Deborah Trapin and Kelly Mitchell and Terry Conrad, and we were getting to know each other, outside of just kind of in our own circle. You know how you kind of go off into your own little niche and you learn from one another. And, I was in that place where I was open and learning, and we were talking about all sorts of things. And, Katie and I got to know each other. But the way that the Inman thing happened was kind of around that. I was just out of the blue contacted by someone who said, so do you know of anyone who, might be a really good, social media person, marketing person for kind of a big company? And of course, at the time, I'm thinking, oh, this is probably a broker, or maybe it's a really big broker who's looking for someone to outsource their social media management to. And I said, well, hey, I'm always up for doing some social media work for big clients. And so I think and then it was probably 2 weeks later. I hadn't heard anything in between, and it was probably 2 weeks later. And I remember the day that I was on my email account, and I got this little cryptic email that said, hey, can you talk? Brad Inman. And I think about fell off my chair because I suddenly realized that big client was probably Brad or something. So of course, I just, at that point, it was just my name had been recommended through a few people. And I think Katie, knowing me through our circles and our relationships, was able to kind of, say, yeah, she might be a good candidate. And I went through an interview process with both Katie and Brad. And, it just kind of evolved from there. And I was just, the rest is history. I've told Brad this, that my opportunity at Inman has been life-changing. It's been an opportunity to be able to work with such an amazing company with Brad is such a visionary in so many different ways, and I don't think people see enough of that side of him, but it was nothing short of extraordinary for me to be a part of that. And certainly it was a challenge to be able to move into that position with Katie and Chris having done such an amazing job building I can't even tell you, such a huge fan base for the brand, and added on more readers and subscribers. And it was really at that critical time when they were there. They were right there with social. They were right there with iPhones and apps, and it just took off. And I think when I came in, it was, my job, as I saw it, was to kind of just do as well as I could to, sort of cover that gap a little, because there was a vacuum when they moved on, and they did amazing things. And so I was like, uh-oh, right now the economy's going down, and I'm going to have to be the one to kind of do what I can. So I just did what I could,
No, well, personally, I think you did a great job. So having been an ambassador for a few of the different Connect events, you get a tiny peek behind the curtains, and there have got to be some stories you can share with us, maybe about Brad and the team, and there's probably stories you can't share with us. So how about a couple of maybe your favorite moments working with Brad and the team on those events? Because it had to be I'm sure the majority of your year was spent planning for the next one.
Yes. In fact, planning for events like Connect, literally do take up the entire year. I worked very closely with Will Hansen, who's the VP of Inman, and the events at Inman. Extraordinarily gifted, event planner. But we worked very collaboratively as a team, and I think some of the best times that we had was, every week we would get together and we would, plan out as departments, how everything was going to look, from content to to speakers, to how it's looking in ambassadors, and what we were starting to get really excited about. And I think one of the most fun things about that event is that you never really know what it's going to look and feel like until you're actually there. You have an idea of, everyone has an idea in their head about what this show is actually going to be, and what we're going to learn, and what the speakers are going to bring to the table. But it's not until you're actually there that you go, wow. And one of the favorite things that I loved about Inman, and especially Will, is that he loves the element of surprise. So one of the things with that was that we never knew what the set was going to look like until the day of. You don't know what that stage is going to look like until you get there. So it's always kind of fun to arrive in San Francisco or arrive in New York. And even though you're there and you're excited, you don't really know what it's all going to look like until that curtain comes up. And so it's a really exciting moment to see all those months of planning and talking about and wondering, if the industry would like this speaker or that speaker to finally get there, and then have it all put together that way. It's a lot of fun,
You mentioned the ambassadors a little bit. And I'm remiss if I don't ask you about that, because that was your, we'll call it chore. Is that safe?
Oh, no. Chore is not the right word.
Oh, it's tougher than that.
No, it was actually a very, it was energy infusing. It really was, because I think that, the ambassador program that Katie started with Inman is a really, really special, unique program. I think in large part because both Katie and I share her sentiment that there are absolutely amazing people, and one of the obviously the main theme of Connect is to bring people together, and I think in our smaller ambassador world, being able to connect the ambassadors to that event, and also bring that event to highlight the professionals in the industry that we see are on social, are using tech, are early adopters, are inspiring to other people. I mean, those are really the identifiers of Inman ambassadors, and there's a million that we never even have gotten into the program yet, but we think we did a pretty gosh darn job of creating a platform to be able to bring amazing people together, yourself included. I know early on how thrilled I was to be a part of it, and I think especially because we're also social, to be able to share the Connect experience from to other people who may not be there was actually kind of a privilege to be able to do that. And so that's what we always hoped it was kind of an opportunity for some more amazing brain trust to come in behind and be able to share it out to the rest of our to our audience at Inman.
I agree. It really did feel like a privilege, and then a wonderful opportunity, as you mentioned, to not only share but to take that connection level to a different place. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Now you were at Inman Connect San Francisco just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You were there representing RealSatisfied, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How was it? How was it attending your first Connect event from that side?
I know it was. I prepared myself for it to be, quite different. Um, I I loved it. I have to say, I was able to. I wasn't able to take in all of the sessions and all of the content because, I was there in meetings and doing a lot of things with our company, which I love, and um, but I was much more relaxed because I
I'm
didn't have
sure.
to worry about where I needed to be when. Um, I I could just kind of enjoy the event and connecting and reconnecting, and I still don't think I got enough of that out of my system. Um, but it's always fun to be able to, the first thing I wanted to do when I got there was walk up to registration and just give my coworkers at Inman a hug and, say, hey, good luck on the show. And I mean, it's still so fresh to me, the event and how it goes, that it was, I think the hardest part was realizing, okay, today I know what they're going through at Inman. I know what they're going through today. They're getting ready to travel. There's people coming in from all over town. The set is, just everything that gets put together, the registration and the badges and all of that excitement, I started feeling before I even got there. But then once I was there and I was with our team, it was like, you know what, Laura, you can breathe. You can focus and do your thing that you need to do with the team. So there was like a moment where I was like, it was a little, the transition has been a challenge for sure, but fun, super fun.
I can imagine the angst a little bit though, just wondering, and it's a feeling for people that you have feelings for. I mean,
Yes,
that's tough.
yes. Yeah,
So
exactly. It's like, oh, maybe I need to go, like, get those ambassadors over here, or need to retweet some ambassadors over here. So yeah, there's always that, wanting to be right in the middle of it kind of a thing.
well, so that brings us to this past spring when you made the move to Real Satisfied. You're their director of marketing here in the United States, and I know Real Satisfied originated in Australia, correct?
Correct? Mm-hmm.
And I've looked at it and I am really intrigued by it. There are review sites all over the place, right? I mean, Zillow and
Right,
Trulia do it, and other companies have
right.
popped up. But Real Satisfied kind of takes this reputation management and customer satisfaction measurement and testimonials into
Mm-hmm.
this whole new place. So let's talk about maybe how this even got started and where Real Satisfied's heading.
Sure, would be happy to. My narrative on exactly how it all started is probably not as good as Jeff Turner's, or even Phil Kells, who is our CEO and co-founder. It started in Australia. He just put out a blog post, in fact, about it. Started over 10 years ago, and it was a customer satisfaction platform for mostly property management in the United States. And Jeff Turner had gone over there in a speaking engagement in Australia and actually saw them on the expo floor of an event and got to know him a little bit more and said, recognized the potential of what it could do here in the United States and, just said, hey, what would you think about bringing it over to the United States? So they took a chance on each other and, the rest is history. We have we just passed a new milestone a couple of weeks ago where we have had returned over 100,000 surveys from clients, and that's 100,000 testimonials that have come out. We have over 80,000 agents on the platform. So we are, and it's such an interesting, it's at an interesting time. And we were talking a little bit earlier, Bill, about how, there was that time of social, when social sprung up, and it was technology and it was apps. And I think what we're moving into is, we've been talking a little bit now about the customer experience and how important that is. And obviously in real estate, because it's so service oriented, we've all known the importance of that. But I think one of the other big narratives in the industry as a whole has been data. What do we do with the data? Who owns the data? Who has the data? What is data? There's been data, and especially at Inman, every day there was an article that came out about big data. And then there'd be another article about customer experience or customer satisfaction. And then came the narrative about agent rankings and agent ratings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, we had been quietly operating behind the scene as on the front-facing side, it's a customer satisfaction platform. We don't just send out, we send out surveys on behalf of agents to ask their clients to answer very in-depth surveys on their client experience. And we have a 40-point survey. It takes a little bit of time to get through it, but we have an over 85% return rate from most of the clients. It's a really high. You'd be surprised.
That's really high for something.
It's really high. Yeah. And it amazes us because you would think that clients would, they're done with the transaction and it's like, thank goodness we got through it, and they're moving in, or maybe they've moved on. But we have found, and Jeff really always articulates this very well, is that when the client actually sits down to answer this, and you know, Bill, that transactions can go from anywhere to 30 days to 18 months or longer.
Mm-hmm.
But when clients sit down to finally fill out some of this information and give really in-depth feedback, their heart is in it. They are absolutely raising their hand and they're saying, I love my agent, but this is the why, very specifically why. But then what we do is we bring that into a nice testimonial at the end so that the agent actually has that written word from them that they can share and syndicate and put on their websites, and they can take it and they can push it over to their realtor.com profiles. So in the sense of it being a reputation management, agents being able to see what that feedback is like to me is really empowering. And I think one of the things that I love about it is that I don't think there's enough in the industry that empowers. I feel like we're always questioning the value proposition of agents and brokers. And what I have found just in my everyday getting to know RealSatisfied more and more is that this information is really empowering. There are agents and brokers doing amazing things with the feedback that they get, not only from the feedback that they get, but also just in general. They're doing amazing things and making a lot of people happy. So to me, that is a stark contrast to a lot of the conversations that we have even in social media, which is, is Zillow going to take the power away from us agents and our brokers? And, are the portals really becoming where the consumers want to be? But at the end of the day, no, that's not true. And I think that in the same sense that we talk about having, a good marketing piece or, really working your customer experience, RealSatisfied provides agents is really in-depth, rich feedback as to, and I was writing a blog post the other day where I was trying to come up with sort of an analogy or maybe a metaphor even, where, remember as a kid when you always wanted to get that gold star from your teacher?
Yes, I do.
Like you didn't care what you were doing. You just wanted to get that gold star. But as we got older and we got into, middle school and high school, that gold star wasn't enough. You really wanted to know why you got the gold star. What is it about me that got me this gold star? Or, so I've collected all these gold stars. What is it about me that makes me do that so well? And I think that's kind of a real world industry way that RealSatisfied helps agents have business intelligence. It's a SWOT analysis rolled up into transaction after transaction, relationship after relationship, where
Kind
they
of
know what's working.
a living,
Mhm.
growing SWOT analysis, right? As it evolves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then from the broker perspective, Real Satisfied is a tool where brokers can actually see across an office how agent performance is being handled and managed, and it provides additional coaching opportunities and training opportunities. The insights are incredible. I mean, I think Jeff quoted about 4 million data points that we've collected
Wow.
over time. The agents own the data. They're the ones that have their own data to be shared. They decide what to do with it. We certainly don't rank agents in a there's always this, oh, are you ranking agents? And there's none of that. We don't rank agents at all. What we do is we provide them a way to gather the feedback that helps them do their business better. And that's from a broker perspective, association perspective, all the way across the board.
Now, do I have this right that the surveys are standardized, so everyone's working from the same?
Exactly.
And that's across the nation, correct?
Correct. We have one survey that, we have several different types of surveys. So we have a buyer survey, we have a seller survey, we have a lost listing survey, we have surveys for property agents, for property management tenants, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the surveys that we have are the same. We don't change those. We don't customize those because the data we're collecting needs to be normalized.
Right.
We need to be able to see that everyone is working off the same benchmarks. And what that allows us to do is give you a dashboard that says, here's a local benchmark, here's a national benchmark, here is a state benchmark. There's different ways that we sort of roll up that data so that you can kind of see if you're hitting the mark and if you're achieving goals and if you're setting out to do the things that you want to do. I mean, in its simplest form, it's a way for you to get that feedback that you want, the reviews and the testimonials. But what we like to encourage, what I'm most excited about it from an industry level, is being able to take that data and really get to know yourself as a professional. Don't be afraid of that data. Don't be afraid of what it uncovers. It's how we get better as an industry. And we talk a lot about raising the bar and doing a lot of these things, but it boils down to, that personal accountability.
Yeah, you got to be able to measure it. You got to be able to measure it.
You have to be able to measure it. You have to.
Yeah.
So that allows you to do that.
This you talked about it, and so an individual agent can sign up for Real Satisfied, or a brokerage can sign up, correct?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
Do you know? I don't know, putting you on the spot, but is it primarily brokers that are playing with this tool more, or do you see a lot of agents coming in?
Well, we have it's both.
Okay.
It's actually what we have seen happen is we'll have a few agents, and a lot of times what will happen is an agent will open an account in an office, and then another agent in that same office, and then another agent, and then before you know it, the broker will open it up. Or in an association, we have Real Satisfied is available for all of Century 21 agents, all of Better Homes and Gardens agents. I
Wow.
mean, these are made. We have associations that are adopting Real Satisfied, and it's really amazing to see how quickly it adopts is being adopted by agents. How quickly and easily people say, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. I mean, we have an API what we will try to do is integrate this with a transaction management. So at the close of a transaction, which could be through an MLS, which could be through an association,
sure,
through the back end of our broker's office, this is where we try to automate as much of it as possible. So there's very little friction and for an agent to adopt it, because it's, especially with our broker accounts and associations, it's literally just turning on an on button and you have it available to you, and we handle most of the automation. So it's just been really incredible to see it grow, and And now, I mean, I think the guys obviously have done so much of the groundwork, but it's going to be fun to sort of bring my own voice. In fact, Jeff and I had that conversation where he said, so what do you think of all this? And I said, it's going to be really fun to put my own voice and my own thought behind, what I think Real Satisfied does for the industry. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That will be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that too. So I always ask this question in every podcast, and it's a difficult question, but I think it helps for people listening. If you had one piece of advice, I know there's 50 in your head, but if one piece of advice for an agent today looking to grow their business, what would it be?
I think, gosh, that's hard. It is a tough question.
Right.
I would say the best piece of advice is when you have an idea of what you're doing really well at, that could fall in any category, whether it's, just building relationships, working on referrals, you're doing great online. Just stick with it. Be consistent. Don't be swayed by the constant new, bright and shiny. And I think we've talked about that a lot as an industry, but even I will, if you start something, don't give up on it too quickly, but don't be too quickly swayed into starting something that you can't see all the way through, and trust your gut that what you can do well and you do well is probably what you should be doing more of, and trust yourself. And I think with something like Real Satisfied, when you have your customers telling you, you are so good at this, that's what you need to keep doing.
That's great. So perseverance, consistency, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, perseverance, consistency. Yeah.
Well, I've taken enough time of your day today. So first of all, before I wrap it up, how can listeners get in touch with you? Is there an easy way if they want more information about Real Satisfied, or just to chat with you?
I think the easiest way is, Laura at RealSatisfied.com, or you can just find me on Facebook, Laura Monroe on Facebook. There's probably a few others, but yeah, Laura Monroe on Facebook. You can just meet me there and send me a message. I'm happy to answer any questions and all that good stuff.
Well, Laura, I really can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today on this little tiny idea I had, with the little podcast. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored and love to chat with you as always.
Great. So that's going to be it for the Real Estate Sessions episode 4. Remember, every Tuesday morning we publish a new episode. You can let your people know, your friends, where to find us, therealestatesessions.com, or obviously in the iTunes store. You can look up the Real Estate Sessions and subscribe there. That's it for today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Sessions with Bill Risser of Chicago Title, Arizona. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and tell your friends about the Real Estate Sessions, as new episodes are published weekly.